The Retroid Pocket 2S was what initially got me into emulation. I've had this Retroid Pocket 2, not the 2S, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. For some reason I skipped the 3, I'm not sure why. And now, the Retroid Pocket 5. I got this in the mail before the holidays and I want to test it thoroughly before I start making a video on it. The time I spent with this getting all the games to run nicely was actually not too bad. Setup for all my games and shaders and overlays all went pretty smoothly. I definitely did want to try some Switch emulation as well, but I ran into way too many different problems. But I'm sure there's always a way to solve it, and if not, it's just better to go back onto original hardware. So let's start with just the physical handheld. Compared to the previous versions of the Retroid Pocket, this is the only iteration of it that has some sort of grip to it. Feeling this though, it does fit better in my hands for sure. I don't really feel like I'm straining my palms too much from holding this one over the Retroid Pocket 2, or the 4 Pro even. Taking a closer look, there is a nice textured grip to it, making it feel like it won't slip out of your hands easily. This version of the Retroid Pocket 5 is the 16-bit colorway one. It looks amazing. I really like the off-white color, just because it doesn't have the same concerns that I have sometimes with some other white handhelds. No worries on any discolorations, etc. Moving on to the face buttons, these feel pretty similar to the other Retroid Pocket 3, which I've tested but I don't have anymore, and the 4 Pro. It's the same clicky, awesome feeling D-pad they had since the third one. All the buttons are great feeling and they don't feel too squishy either. The same goes for the shoulder buttons and triggers. And if you look at the shoulder buttons and triggers closely, you could see that same textured grip on the back of the device, on the shoulder buttons and the triggers as well, but it does seem to recede a little bit more further. Some new additions to the Retroid Pocket 5, there are now some pretty cool LED lights around the analog sticks. There's bigger ventilation, means some higher end games will work better as well. Also, it helps with making the handheld feel more balanced. The weight distribution to the device makes it feel better to hold for longer periods of time. It's nice that the speaker grills are now front facing compared to the previous version where it fires downwards. I also like how the start and select are now placed on both sides of the screen instead of it being all on the bottom right side. It does make reaching for the start and select to feel a little bit more natural, where it's positioned the same way as the Nintendo Switch, the Steam Deck, and even the ROG Ally. The bigger change would be the full front glass panel. The combination of the nice plastic on the back and the smooth glass front makes everything feel more premium as you hold on to it. Here's some size comparisons so you know what to expect when you get in the Retroid Pocket 5. Compared to the other Retroid Pockets, of course it's significantly bigger than the Retroid Pocket 2. But the experience in holding the Retroid Pocket 5 does feel a lot better, especially because of the weight. It also looks way more premium than the toy-looking Retroid Pocket 2, which I still think it's a great device for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance gaming. It's also a little bigger than the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, but of course due to the grip on the back of the Retroid Pocket 5, it does make holding the handheld a better experience than holding the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. These do fit in my pocket, but like most of the other handhelds I have, I wouldn't really want to because the analog sticks would get stuck, so it just doesn't feel right for me. A little bit more about this amazing OLED screen. This is the 5.5-inch OLED screen, which was what drew me to it more than other devices. Like how the Iron Odin 2 Mini has a great looking mini LED screen, but it really doesn't compare to this OLED screen. And how the screen is bezel-less, it makes it feel like the whole handheld is way more premium than it is, and it also creates a more immersive gameplay experience. You've probably seen some specs for this handheld in other videos. I mean, I am pretty late to the game, but here's some perspective. The Retroid Pocket 5 has a Snapdragon 865, 8GB of RAM, and the best part, a 5.5-inch 1080p OLED screen, which can play games up to PS2 with ease and some Switch games. While higher end devices like the Odin 2 Pro has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, Pro model has the 12GB of RAM and a 1080p LCD screen. It can play up to PS2 games as well, and a couple more Switch games than the Retroid Pocket 5. The price point for the Odin 2 Pro is around $369, which is pretty high, but it's still one of the best emulation handheld you can get. But when it comes to the Retroid Pocket 5, you're essentially saving $120 to play all of your retro games. Now, for front-end launcher, we have Emulation Station. At first, I used Daijisho, but Emulation Station has custom themes to it that changes more of the UI compared to Daijisho, where it just applies a skin in a sense. So I find it more fun to look at in Emulation Station. But for some reason on the Retroid Pocket 2, I have to run Daijisho. For some reason, I couldn't get it to run the APK file for Emulation Station on it, so I'm not sure what to do there. And after so many attempts, I ended up just using Daijisho for the Retroid Pocket 2. But everything else uses Emulation Station. The Retroid Pocket 5 can run many different emulators and games. It's actually pretty surprising what it can run. Running from Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance SP, to even larger consoles like the N64, GameCube, Wii U, Wii, PS2, PS1, etc. There's so many options for the different kinds of emulators, and they all run pretty great. I did mention Switch emulation earlier too, but for that only some games worked. But nonetheless, it's still an amazing handheld for under $250. Other than emulation, this device is the perfect handheld for Android gaming. Games like Zenless Zone Zero, Genshin Impact, or even Honkai Star Rail. And the OLED screen does make the experience to these games even better. Even Wuthering Waves now has controller support. I can't believe they didn't really talk about it in its more recent update, but regardless, it's such a cool update to have. And now I really don't have to worry about mapping any buttons to the screen. Now we can mention prices. This Retroid Pocket 5 is $219. It's still a bit pricey, but if you compare this to other high-end devices, the easiest one to recommend would be the Retroid Pocket line. You're not getting these high-end devices to emulate Switch games for sure. It's just a nice plus to it since original hardware still works better. So what you would be emulating would be older titles from Game Boys or even 3DS or NDS. In my case, even arcade games and Sega Genesis. Nostalgic games from when you were once a kid, and because of that, it really does make the Retroid Pocket easier to recommend, especially the Retroid Pocket 5. I really do like the Retroid Pocket lineup. They're not too heavily priced, and the power that comes with the handheld is actually more than enough for me to emulate what I want. If you wanted something more powerful to emulate maybe higher end Switch games, then you would have to put down a couple $100 more to get something a little bit better. But people aren't getting these handhelds to emulate those high-end games. They're more targeted for people trying to emulate retro games or even games before the PS2 era, or even Android games, like high-end Android games. So for what the Retroid Pocket 5 can handle, it really does become the best budget high-end emulation handheld to recommend. Let me know what you guys think about the Retroid Pocket lineup down in the comments below. Would you settle for what the Retroid Pocket 5 has to offer? Or would you throw down more money for something a little bit more powerful, like the Iron Odin 2 Pro or the Iron Odin 2 Portal? That's pretty much what there is to the Retroid Pocket 5. I want to thank you guys for helping the channel reach 500 subs. Because of the support I get from you guys, it does make me want to make better videos each time. And as always, a great way for you guys to help support this channel even further is to share this video to a friend that is looking for that budget emulation handheld, or if they're still considering the Retroid Pocket 5. You can also give this video a like and subscribe. Thanks guys. Peace.